Hey guys, welcome back to Bombchu. I'm Austin and today I'll be covering the Humble Monthly Bundle from June 2017. This month's bundle has 8 games, 7 for Steam, and a smaller experimental bundle exclusive game, as well as a continuation of the comic that started in the last month's bundle. That means we have a lot to cover, so let's get to it. I'll be giving my first impressions of each game and determining if they're games I'd like to continue playing. This month's exclusive title is Tiny Echo, a short point-and-click adventure game from the makers of Shelter. The game starts off with several beings laying about with shadowy hands extending from them. Together they all drop letters down to you and you begin your duty of delivering all the letters. Some recipients are pretty easy to find, others are more hidden. In most cases you'll need to solve a puzzle of some sort to gain access to areas you need to go, and these often involve interacting with things in totally separate parts of the world, making everything feel more connected. Whenever you do find a recipient, a shadow emerges from them to take the letter, and you're shifted to a view of what I assume is somewhere in their mind, where that same recipient is sleeping. You must open the letter, causing a light hand to come out and wake them up, revealing them to be holding something of significance. My mind has been tumbling over trying to figure out the meaning behind everything, but whenever I think I have a handle on it, I see something else that doesn't fit my theory. I did run into one glitch where I entered a door and then this happened. I couldn't do anything for a few seconds, but the game eventually gave control back to me and all I had to do was walk out and back in the door, so I was thankful I didn't have to restart the game. All in all, I had a pleasant time here, and this was a great pick for the Humble exclusive, especially after the mess of A to B last month. I'm guessing you'll see this game on Steam within the next year. I think I'm likely to continue just to see if I can figure out the meaning behind everything here. This is usually where the debut game would go, but it seems Humble didn't go with a debut game this time. Maize is a first-person adventure game about sentient corn. You wake up in the middle of a cornfield and catch a glimpse of some of the sentient corn running away. Off you go, finding items here and there that don't serve an immediately obvious purpose. They are, of course, used to solve puzzles to get other items or gain access to new areas. One way this game helps to keep you from getting stuck on puzzles for long is by giving you item descriptions that hint at their use. For example, I really wasn't sure what to do with this rusty nail until I found an item that was described as being meant to pull things from walls, which wasn't really obvious without the description. Some items are less descriptive, and one item I found straight up told me what to use it on. This opening tutorial was great, with some decently involved puzzles without feeling unfair. The corn maze would be easy to get lost in, but there are very handy signs that help you find your way wherever you want to go very quickly. This is a comedy game, but the atmosphere is almost creepy, and if I didn't know anything about this game going in, I would think I was playing a horror game. My only real gripe is that some areas are blocked off by these orange boxes. You don't use items to get rid of these barriers, they're just removed when you reach certain points of the game, and then you get told a new route opened up. This kept me from exploring areas I didn't need to be in yet, and I can appreciate that, but it just felt very inorganic for something that is otherwise pretty well thought out. I think the developers were likely focusing on making sure more people had an enjoyable experience without getting overwhelmed. I just wish it had been done in a more clever way, like the item descriptions. Maize is really out there, and every new area I found left me with more questions and intrigue. I had to tear myself away from it to move on with the rest of this bundle, but I will definitely be continuing. Our next game is Plague Inc. Evolved, a virus simulation game. This has been on my wishlist for a very long time, so I was really excited to see it here. You start off without much choice, only being able to choose bacteria with no mutations. Other choices can be unlocked from completing playthroughs. Once you start your game, you can choose what country you want to infect first. Maybe you want to choose a poor country, or somewhere with a lot of international transit to make it easier to spread early. As you infect more people in more countries, you gain points that you can spend to evolve your disease, adding ways it can infect people, new symptoms, as well as making your disease harder to cure or deal with. I started out in France and decided to make my virus very resilient and very infectious, but without any serious symptoms, so it could spread for a long time without being detected. This worked quite well, and it wasn't detected until a huge portion of the world already had the disease. I had also made it very difficult to cure already, so now I could focus on infecting the remainder of the world, and finally, ramping up the symptoms to start killing everyone off. Man, for how dark this game is, it's kinda scary how fun it is. Random events will occur which can be good or bad, like an extremely unhygienic love festival, which will help your disease spread if you have the right methods of transmission, or a natural disaster might prevent a country from working on a cure. At the same time, some events can happen like your disease causing too many problems, accelerating research on a cure. Humanity started to get close to finding a cure, but I managed to kill off so many people that it slowed progress on the cure to a full stop, and from there, I watched the last of the humans die off. I liked this one a lot. Would kill humanity again. Next up is SUPERHOT. SUPERHOT is the most innovative shooter I've played in years. Sorry, I had to do it. This is one I've actually beaten all the way through. SUPERHOT is a first-person shooter with the twist that time moves extremely slowly when you aren't moving, allowing you to pull off some really awesome moves like you're in an action movie. This is combined with some very cool stuff like throwing an object at a nearby enemy, making them drop their gun, taking their gun, and shooting them and their friends with it. The art style pops really well, and it makes it very easy to see enemies. The story surrounding the game isn't really necessary, but it's a nice extra touch, and it plays around with some fun ideas. This game is a lot of fun, and it's extremely satisfying to get out of a tough situation and then watch what you did in full speed afterwards. If I hadn't beat it already, I would definitely continue this one. Game 5 is Stellaris. My buddy Sky hit me up when he saw this was going to be in the June bundle and asked me to let him talk about it. Considering he has hundreds of hours logged in the game, and 4X strategy games are not really my thing, I couldn't pass up that kind of knowledge, so here he is to talk about it.
Stellaris is a 4X grand strategy game developed by Paradox Interactive. The game's customization is focused around government and ethos choices. You can choose to have things such as a cult of personality military dictatorship, a corporate oligarchy, and even an egalitarian technocracy. Whatever you choose, these choices have a deep impact on the narrative dialogue of the game. The early game is extremely fun and very RPG-like. Exploration of the galaxy is accomplished by science ships. As they gain more experience, they can undertake research missions that can reward anything ranging from simple lore or resource bonuses to entire quest chains that yield very powerful civilization-wide buffs. There is a very real sense that space is a dangerously unpredictable but wondrous place filled with history that one can explore. Part of the fun of playing a 4X game is imagining your own narrative within the context of your playthrough. I find that Paradox cleverly aids that by providing you with such vibrant and lore-filled galaxies. The exploration phase of this game has immense replay value. The game is a real-time strategy, but it feels more like a streamlined turn-based game. I say this based on my own tendency to speed up or slow down during my playthroughs to accommodate new things to micromanage. Both research and economy management are designed to favor equally both tall and wide gameplay styles. I find this to be very refreshing in a genre dominated by wide played styles. The chief criticism I have of the mid-game is that the enemy AI is more often than not too passive, and the diplomacy system is very weak. This is definitely not for fans of Crusader Kings. The endgame, as in most 4X games, is pretty stale. However, Stellaris introduces the concept of endgame crises. These are crisis events that have galaxy-wide implications in scale. They could be the invasion of an intergalactic hive mind bioswarm, the uprising of sentient AI, or even the awakening of massively powerful fallen empires already present within the galaxy. While in theory this is really cool, in practice it is extremely bugged. I've played Stellaris through 9 complete playthroughs and have gotten the same endgame crisis each time, the extra-dimensional invaders. This is a very common complaint amongst the player base that Paradox has been unable to fix. Fortunately, the game has an extensive and active modding community that has helped to deal with it. Space combat in Stellaris is about rock, paper, scissors customization options. I personally feel that this game fell short of titles such as Sins of a Solar Empire in how these space battles look and feel. All combat in this game feels very stale, and even with mods, it's nothing worth remembering. Even the customization options fall flat. Despite there being hundreds of different species combinations, there are only 8 fleet designs. I think Stellaris is a great value, especially in the Humble Bundle. If you like strategy games and love world-building science fiction, this is your game. If you're looking for a more tactical game or one with better diplomacy, look elsewhere. Paradox does a great job of hotfixing this game and also responding to the player base. They also recently came out with their new DLC, Utopia, and I believe that's a must-buy as well.
This leads us to Ashes of the Singularity. Just like 4X strategy, real-time strategy is also not my thing. Maybe I just have a puny brain. Luckily, Gabe, who's been heading up the streaming department for Bombchu, has a lot more experience with RTS games. Unfortunately, because of how little time I get to make these humble reviews, I wasn't able to get Gabe in time to record his thoughts. So I'll be reading his thoughts. To start, this game has a lot going on at once. Like, a lot. Look at this madness. Fortunately, there are some nice things that Ashes does to make this chaos more manageable. For one thing, you can set up a queue of units for a factory to build, and you can even have it set to repeat that queue over and over so you can just set it, forget it, and focus on finding resources and fighting battles. I started off in the tutorial, and I felt like I was doing well enough, so I tried to skip ahead a bit. I was met with a defeat screen for not following instructions and kicked back to the menu. I decided to play around in a skirmish with AI on higher difficulty, and promptly got my ass handed to me. This is where, really, my biggest annoyance came in. The sound.
An enemy nexus has been destroyed.
Yeah. I made it. I made it.
The enemy has captured a region.
Why is it so f***ing loud?
Oh yeah, and it took over 3.5 minutes to load up the game. If I hadn't heard my hard drive going, I'd have thought the game froze. Despite that, I liked what I've played a lot, but I really can't wait to do multiplayer, which has a ranked mode. I'll definitely be playing more. Next is Brigador, an isometric sci-fi shooter. First, I have to mention this music. It's excellent. 80s synth that just puts my mind in another state. Anyways, from what I can tell, there are 3 different battle vehicles you can use. A mech, a ramming tank, and a hover car. By far my favorite is the hover car. It doesn't have as much power or health, but it zips around very quickly. The starting levels are tutorials to teach you about each vehicle's abilities, like smoke bombs for the mech, ramming and invisibility for the tank, and a ground smash and EMPs for the car. Shots do more damage on the sides and backs of both you and your enemies, so you want to use your abilities to flank enemies when possible to get the upper hand. Everything is destroyable too, so you can force your way through to get behind enemies, or get a surprise attack on them. Ammo can be picked up from enemies or from ammo depots, though you have to be careful fighting around these as they can explode, damaging anything nearby and removing your ammo source. Some enemies are spotters, who will try to radio in an alarm if they see you or take damage. Alarms are a pain to deal with, as all the enemies in the area are alerted to your position, have their shields up, and panic walls are raised, which take a lot of damage to take down. The only way to remove these panic walls entirely is to destroy certain towers in the area, but best practice is just to make sure you disable spotters before they can finish triggering an alarm. After I completed the vehicle-specific tutorials, I began the main levels, and I was surprised to see that the tutorials were still going. I'm not really sure where it ends. This one is fun, and definitely more involved than I expected. I could see myself playing it a bit further. Our final game is Shoppe Keep, a game about managing an adventurer's shop. This seems like a novel idea, but man, this game is so poorly slapped together. You choose at the start if you want prompts for keyboard and mouse or a controller, and if you choose controller, you get this giant message in the menu with just awful wording. It shouldn't be necessary for me to press a specific button in order to actually be allowed to start moving through the menu options, and considering that's the way they went, this is a terrible way to indicate it. I selected the tutorial to learn the basics, and despite picking controller prompts, I was only shown the keyboard controls on the tutorial. So I gave up on controller and went mouse and keyboard. Also, look at this thing. Ugh, just walls of text, and not very pleasing to look at. I ended up skipping this and came to regret it. I created my shop, accidentally created a second, and boy howdy, look at this interface. And look at that, they don't just show you the name of your shop, but the full file name. Starting up the game with this busted loading animation, and when I'm finally past that, The first thing I see is this mirror. Wow, what a great reflection they made here. Someone was so proud of this, they made it the first thing you see. Someone thought, yeah, everyone will be super impressed by this. Things only devolved from here. Tutorial messages pop up and disappear in a flash, giving you no chance to read them. It turns out you have to be standing in pretty specific areas for tutorial messages to appear and stay there. But every time you pass into that area, the message pops up again, seemingly without end. Worse, the tutorial message will often block you from doing what it wants you to do. Like here. It tells me to press Q to create an order for more items. I open it up and, oh god, why does it look like this? I can barely read that. What's going on here? Okay, let's get a potion and some basic adventuring items. How do I finish the order? One of these nondescript buttons? Ugh, I should have read the tutorial. Turns out the message telling me to pull up the ordering menu blocks half the ordering menu. Specifically the half I need to complete the order. Not that that works, I can't order anything. I figure I don't have any money and need to go out and find some. I go out and look, and nothing. There's nothing I can interact with out here. There are these dark doors that look like they'll take me to another area, but no. They just end. I did find out that you can't jump, and the game obnoxiously tells you this every time you press space.
No jumping. You can't do that. Stop trying. Stay on the ground, young man.
You know, if the game hadn't told me, I don't think I could have figured it out from the fact that I didn't jump after pressing the button. I also figured out that the door to my shop doesn't move like other doors. I just passed through it with quantum tunneling. At long last, I find out that I can order stuff, just not what I wanted to order. I can only order a small number of potions. They arrive and I need to place them out in the shop, and how the hell do I place this? There's nothing here to display any of my stock. The only spots I can interact with are walls to remove for way more than the 0 gold I currently have. There are plates outside, I can display it there, right? No. Around this time, I was pretty fed up and started looking online to see what I was missing. Unsurprisingly, this was an early access game. Reviews from that time were positive, as people who were willing to muddle through this mess were expecting improvements down the line. However, more recently, and this is even before the bundle was launched, reviews have been mostly negative, lamenting the fact that the developers decided the game was done in this state. This is an unpolished and unfinished game. I can't believe that I'm covering this in a humble monthly video, and not as a part of my Clearing the Vault series. In its current state, which I suspect won't ever change, I will not be continuing this game. Last is the new comic included with the bundle, UnderWhere. I say new, this comic was actually originally published back in 1995. This bundle brings the second issue of 4, though if you missed the May bundle, it looks like they included the first issue here as well. My opinion hasn't changed much with this second issue, so if you want to hear my short thoughts on this comic, you can check out my previous monthly review. I'll have a link to that at the end of this video. It's a decent distraction, but I don't think anyone is buying the bundle for this bonus comic. So overall, how was this bundle? I'm glad the Humble exclusive had a strong comeback this month to wash out the taste from last month's. Two of the main highlights of this bundle aren't really my style, but obviously fans of those genres like them quite a bit. The only game I already owned was SUPERHOT, so lots of new titles for me, with Plague Inc. satisfying my wishlist a bit, and Maize rounding things out with a great unexpected game. Shopkeep was definitely a questionable pick, and considering there was no debut game this month, I have to wonder if they had one lined up that had to back out, and this was the only thing they could scrounge up last minute. Still, it wasn't bad enough to detract from the rest of the games. Just a really strangely low quality pick from Humble. So how much bang for your buck was there? To total everything up, paying full price, these would all rack up a cost of $173. Getting all these at their lowest sale price would cost about $68. This is a bit lower than usual on sale price, largely because Shopkeep has gone as low as $1.24, which is still too much money for that game in my opinion. This bundle wasn't entirely geared towards me, but it's hard to deny that there were some great picks in here for many. I'd say it was a pretty good bundle. Next month's bundle has Dark Souls 2, Scholar of the First Sin. Considering the marquee titles of recent months, I'm a bit surprised they didn't go with Dark Souls 3. But hey, I can't wait to see what else is in there. Catch you next time.